If you have ever had a relationship with a toxic person of any kind, today's for you. I'm going to break down some toxic person tactics to help you feel more empowered to deal with them. Get yourself in the lotus position, because I've got no plan, no pretense, and definitely no bypassing. I'm Josh Connolly, and this will probably be dysfunctional. Look, I know we've been, just before I get started, I know I've had guests on. We've had a couple of guests. The reaction to Carl's episode last week's been incredible. I've got people booked in the studio and stuff like that, so I'm not fully in the groove of getting the guests on properly yet, which is why you're stuck with me again this week. And I don't want to lose the episodes on my own entirely either, so we'll still be bringing them. Every now and then you're going to get me sat like this. And what I wanted to do today is talk to you about toxic people's tactics. Now, before I jump into this, right, when what I believe to be sort of the toxic, horrible people that I'm talking about engage with me online, sometimes it brings out my own toxic tendencies. Sometimes I become horrible. I can't help myself. As is human, by the way. I'm talking about people that just never break from it, which I want to try and get into. In the instances where it's possible, you should not interact with these people. All right. Let me just be really, really clear about that. I do a lot of interacting with them for research purposes. When I can see, and what I mean by research purposes is I just think this is perfect. They're doing everything that these people do, and I'm going to be able to use this to explain. And I had an interaction recently on Facebook, which has sort of shaped why I'm going to do this episode. I've got some notes over here about a couple of other things that I want to sort of talk about and get into. But I'm going to start with talking about this interaction that I had on Facebook. Now, for a bit of background on this, there was a lady that would comment on every single TikTok video that I made, right? And she was appearing to be quite balanced in her kickback, but she would kick back every single post. She would just hold the opposing view, right? So it sort of felt like a red flag, but she would never be too narky. She would never be too pointy. She would always just kick back. And I actually got to the point where I messaged her and was like, will you come on the podcast? Because I thought she could engage with me. But there was like something lingering in the back of my head that like, she's not as nice as, not that she'd ever come across as nice, by the way. She'd like, she would sort of quite furiously kick back against me, but never get pointy or diggy at me, never attack my character, just completely kind of attack what I was saying, which is fine, right? You can't hold strong opinions and not expect people to have opposing opinions. The red flags is when they start, attacking your character, right? And they're not attacking your point. So I did message her for full transparency here. I did message her and say, will you come on the podcast? And she sort of said, I will, but I don't know how to use the tech. So you'd have to help me on that. And I thought, well, you're making because she made videos. You're making TikTok videos. So it's a bit of a strange answer. And then anyway, it sort of fell away. And then I messaged her again and was like, because she was commenting on another post. And I was like, and I actually said to her, I disagree with everything that you say. Let's have a chat about it on the podcast. She's like, you've already asked me this. And I've told you need to help me with the tech. And as is the case, I'll be completely straight with you. With most things, if there's even a tiny bit of friction in terms of like, you'll need to do X, Y, or Z to make it happen, it can stop it happening for me. And I proved that I've got a list of over 100 people that want to come on the podcast, and I'm still not booking them in because I'm like, there's so many, I got to pick between them all. So that does happen, but that's a bit of the backstory. Now, anyway, a comment popped up on my Facebook, and I've got it here, so I'm gonna read you the interactions, right? And straight away, my necklace keeps banging against this microphone. Sorry. I could straight away recognize her picture, but her tone was completely different. What is it about toxic people and Facebook. Like, this woman had howled it together completely on TikTok the whole time. And her first ever comment that I've seen anyway on my Facebook. I don't really use Facebook, right? I don't post on Facebook. When I post on Instagram, it posts to Facebook. So I'm guilty of not, I try and keep up with the way that people interact with me. I try and respond to as many people as I can. But I'm a bit lacked on Facebook, right? Because I don't like it and I don't use it. Anyway, let me read you her first comment. Adults still clinging on to family of origin are codependent and have slid into vindictive narcissism. They chase the validation with hate speech and projection. It's an avoidance of accountability and autonomy. They still need validation, even if it's vulgar. A grown man still squealing about his mummy is not the man to follow. He's going to project onto others and blame for his lack of balls to move on. So, like, however you look at it, right, that is a, like, pointy, not very nice comment, right? Even if she's put some stuff in there that may be an opposing view, that may have some weight, right, in her eyes or in people's eyes, right? I'm trying to be balanced here, yeah. Saying that, like, he's going to project onto others his lack of balls to move on, and a grown man squealing about his mummy. They chase validation. And I couldn't believe it, right? I was like, is this the same person? Now, the video she's commented on is, when your kids trigger you, it's not about them, it's about you. Right? And so I just talk about, like, when your kids trigger you, it's pointing to the fact that you need to do some work, right? So I responded, and I was like, are you the lady from TikTok? I said, cool, you're a bit more forward on here, aren't you? It's fairly amusing. You're telling people not to follow me, but you comment on every single post on TikTok. Because, like, how can you tell people not to follow me? And you're somebody who is, like, obsessed with my posts on TikTok, right? And then I said, P.S. My mum is an incredible woman, and we're very close, which is the reality, right? I'm close with my mum. I'm very open about that, by the way. And then she said, I am informing people's informed decision making. Your ego wants it to be about you, but men with prey mindsets make you gag. Oh no, make me gag. You are avoiding accountability by blaming your mummy. What a sad and pitiful look that is. So, like, again, she's being horrible, right? She's being horrible about me, right? Which is what I want to show with this interaction that I have with her, right? Is that even if you respond fairly reasonably, right? And when somebody's being horrible to you, if I'm horrible to you about who you are as a person, right? It is appropriate for you to be a bit horrible back. This idea that you can be horrible to somebody and then justify it by however she's going to go on to try and justify it, and then not expect them to kick back. So this is like one of the things when it comes to reactive abuse that toxic people will do, right? I mean, this woman here is not being very passive, right? She's fucking openly being horrible. But what they'll do with reactive abuse is they'll be passively horrible to you so that it's hard to pick up on. And then when you so what happens for a lot of us, right, is if somebody's passively being horrible to you, you have a tendency to be a little bit passive back because you think you're fucking being horrible to me and I want to be horrible back, but I don't want to look like, so then you're overthinking it, and then you do become a bit passive. So you have to try not to do that if you are going to interact with people. But this is what they're looking for with reactive abuse, right? So even if you're not passive and somebody's being horrible to you and then you be horrible back to them, they'll then like point to your horribleness, yeah? And she's also added on to her last comment. So you have a great relationship with your mother, but you're encouraging others to project on theirs. So let me just be really clear, yeah? I never tell anyone to not have a relationship with their parents. Go and find me a video where I advise anybody to not do that. I talk about the fact that it's the only option and the reality for a lot of people, and I hold space for that. But never, when anybody asks me, should I go no contact with my parent, I will never, ever tell people what to do. I will support and help them unpack their situation, but I'll never tell them what to do. So then she says that suggests you get your vindictiveness from your mother. And then she says, what a vulgar woman you are presenting her to be. That I'm presenting my mum to be vulgar. And vulgar, yeah, vulgar is a fucking, like, deep word, isn't it? When you say vulgar, yeah, you are, like, really, you're in your fucking, like, you are venomous in that moment, yeah, when you're calling someone vulgar. You're going into the fucking pit of darkness, yeah, and pulling that word out in you, vulgar, yeah? There is an energy to words, whether we want to fucking admit it or not, yeah? I might have to take one of these necklaces off in a minute because it may be creating a sound. Bear with me. Unedited podcast, as much as you love it, I'm actually going to take this one off because, there we go. New cap, by the way, for the people watching on YouTube. Yeah, I know it's fucking lush, isn't it? Sorry for the people listening that have just listened to me take my necklace off. So, I then say, haha, parts of... so there's a part of me that still was like, this has got to be a parody account, right? I partly thought that. I partly started to think it, but it's not. But I said, part of me thinks you're a parody account. And then I said, what happened to you? You've done so well for months on TikTok, presenting yourself as balanced and just holding an opposing view. It's always Facebook where you lose it. And then, had she said that I was a therapist somewhere? She's deleted one of her comments. She's deleted a couple of her comments. Okay. So then she says, no, you haven't, Josh. You have been defensive and constantly use this virtue mask while spreading vindictive propaganda. If a woman marries a man with a prey mindset, they will nod just like your mother. You project blame to avoid accountability. You wrote a book on avoiding accountability. Right? So she's not read the book. She's not read the book. So I said, look, I'm not a therapist, by the way, and my wife would have something to say about simply nodding. You literally commented on my TikTok post for months, and I've always politely replied. In fact, I still am, in spite of her losing her marbles, right? And I say, I wrote a book on taking responsibility, which is what my book is about. I regularly defend my opinions. All right, I don't want to bore you with all this. And she said, I have more words. If you are still attached to trauma as an adult, then it indicates you are codependent, refusing to empower your autonomy. When you write a book about projection onto others, that's encouraging them to avoid accountability. I am indeed in a bad mood. And well spotted, but it's irrelevant to my point. It's because those spreading projection instead of empowering autonomy to find compromise have had my account deleted again. So her account got deleted on TikTok. It's very frustrating, Josh, and I'm realizing that, and I'm releasing that frustration rather than suppressing it and finding an old disappointment to blame. So then I went on to say, how long did it take you to read the book? And she gets like angry about that, and then she says that I'm a covert narcissist. And then she says, she then goes on to like, I don't want to fucking bore with you because it just gets a bit tit for tat, Josh. I'm semi-reading what she said. That's why I said my name. She then goes into a word salad. So there's a fucking long message there. And I'll talk about word salads in a second. But essentially, like what she goes on to do, right, is she's like, starts saying that I'm projecting onto her. I'm being passive aggressive. And like I was being a bit passive aggressive in the end. I was, man. It was hard not to be. But what you can see is when you engage with these people, right, no matter how much you try to, because what I try to do is sort of tangle her up a little bit, right? Just stay calm, just keep going with truth, right? And see how she reacted to it. Every time you just present the facts and present the truth and only deal with the truth and avoid like getting into tit for tat, you know, when she's being horrible, just don't be horrible back. Just feed back the truth. What do you think about that? They will never, like, you don't win. You don't win. And that, the point I wanted to highlight, as much as I've sort of just been reading the comments and laughing about them, the main point I wanted to highlight is if you try and engage with a toxic person and you think, I'm just going to drill down on truth and I'm just going to keep giving them that, and then at some point it's just going to be undeniable for them. It won't be. And I see a lot of people out there saying they hate the truth. They don't care about the truth. I mean, she was getting upset, but they don't care. Like, it just gives them fuel to keep going, yeah? And they will keep going because they will have to have the last word. Yeah, they will have to have the last word. So my point really is to just be wary about engaging with people in that way, because you'll never win. You're never, ever going to win. And they will try and bamboozle you with these word salads. They will try to get you to be reactive. So they'll be horrible, yeah? And then they can be like she was being, quite sort of explicitly horrible, quite clearly horrible, yeah? And yet when you finally flip and then go, do you know what? Well, fuck you, and da-da-da, and just be horrible and start attacking them. They'll then be like, see, look, you're not the person that you said you were, and trying to claim, and look how much you reacted, and of course I was angry, and like they won't, and you will go crazy because you will try to react with basic knowledge to what they're saying, and they don't care. They'll just twist and bend the truth and move around it until they make themselves right, and like that's just inevitable with them. And you see this all the time, like when you try and engage with them. One of the other things I wanted to talk about is DAVO. Now, I've talked about this a few times on here, right? So when we look at DAVO as deny, attack, reverse the victim and the offender, yeah? I've had many interactions with people online where they do this, right? They will first just deny. If you call them out, they'll just deny. That didn't happen. There's absolutely no way that happened. And then if you then present the clear facts, right, they will then start to attack you. You fucking, well, obviously this. And then they'll go on the attack and they'll start to try and make you crazy. Yeah? How dare you? How dare you suggest that? And then if you stay calm and like, you know, because this is where you get to when you're trying to interact with them, that's when they'll then reverse the victim. Right? And then they'll then go, well, I hope you're happy. I hope you're happy that you're doing this because this is breaking me. So you go from, you'll call them out. Yeah, they'll deny it. That didn't happen. And then you go, here's the clear evidence that happened. Right? They'll attack you. How dare you? How dare you show up here? And then when you stay calm like that and they don't get the reaction that they need from that, that's when they'll reverse the victim offender. Yeah? I hope you're happy. I hope you know I've got, and they'll list a mental health illness or some physical ailment, or like, I've been depressed and if this causes this, then I hope you realize it's because of what you do. And then all of a sudden, when we've started off by calling out something horrible that they've done, yeah, some form of abuse that they've done, we've ended up with them being the victim. And if you're not aware of that pattern and you have to see it clearly, you won't know what's happening. And again, let me just come back to what I said at the top of the podcast, at the beginning of the podcast, yeah? The best thing is to just not engage with them at all. But we know in many instances that that's not possible, right? Family, co-parenting, we've done a podcast on that in the past. So you need to understand that there are times when you're interacting. And so that's why you need to be clued up on this stuff. You really do need to understand when that's happening. And I've had it. I mean, I wouldn't have the messages in my social media anymore. But there was one woman that made a comment on one of my posts, and I went back to her and just said, like, that's not okay saying that here in this space. She was nasty about people that had gone no contact with their parents. And then when I said that, she attacked me, like you know, in a bit the way that lady did, horrible to me. And then when I stayed calm again and just said, you can believe what you want, but don't turn up on a post about children that have gone no contact with their parents, saying the kind of thing that you had said. And then she'd come in my DMs and was all like, you know, maybe, you know, you shouldn't have said what you said and all that sort of stuff. And I was like, you can't come. No, she was calling out other people that had reacted badly to her. They just all attacked me. And I was like, you cannot say what you said in that post, in your comment, and not expect people to get upset when you do that in that space. Can you see that? She just denies it. And then I just went back to it and I said, no, can you see? And then she was like, well, yes, you're right. This is what she said. You're right. I should have known better. I should have known better that I would get attacked by people that couldn't hold space for an opposing opinion. And I was like, no, that's not. I'm not saying that. You need to understand that your words were not very nice. You can't use these words. Can you understand that? And then she went into this. You got no idea what it's like to be me, and I hope you know how crazy you're making me feel. And then she used them words, you know, gaslighting me into thinking I'm the crazy one. And it, you know, never, ever underestimate just how much toxic people can project, because they're so good at projecting, or they're so defiant. I don't like using positive words for them. So defiant in their projection that you're the one that's doing what they're doing. You will fucking lose your mind if you're not careful. You will lose your mind, because you could be thinking, like, this person is gaslighting the shit out of me with this word salad. And the moment you think it, then they'll come out of it. And you're just gaslighting me and using a word salad. And you'll be like, how can they do that? And then you like start like thinking, what have I said? Surely not. And it will drive you crazy, because they'll be so firm and sure in it. And by the way, let me just for a second talk about what a word salad is, in case you don't know what a word salad is. That is when they are saying a whole load of fucking nothing to bamboozle you and confuse you and bringing up, like, let's just say we're talking about a parent and it's the fact that you didn't tell them you were having a social gathering, right? They won't go, you didn't tell me that you were having a social gathering, right? Or they might start there. But then if you interact with them, then they'll be like, when you were 3 and you were in nappies and you were doing this, and like, it was so hard to do that. And then also, of course, there was that thing with your sister that happened. And there's all this shit that comes out, and it's just like a word salad. And you're like, I fucking don't even know where to start with that, right? And then you can look, and it will be pages of it if it's written down, or long text messages, or if they're verbalizing it. And you can go, fuck me, man, there's 7 pages of stuff here. And I don't even know if there's anything that I sort of need to reply to. And it's to bamboozle you. It's to bamboozle you and to make you think that they're crazy. And because they've got, you know, they're so lacking in self-awareness that they've gone into like this stream of consciousness. Triangulation I've got written here is one, when they pull in their flying monkeys, and often if it's in a family situation, they'll pull in siblings. And in a family situation, when it's a parent, they'll work really hard to get certain siblings on side, so that, you know, one sibling's doing amazing, you're not. They can really point to, it can't be me, because look at this amazing sibling. And they'll pull the sibling in on, and they'll, I'm going to use the word, they will train those siblings to be on their side through fear and through like rewarding them for shopping in kids, siblings that are not doing the kind of abusive tasks that they're trying to force them to do through coercion and stuff like that. So that's when it shows up in a family. Triangulation will show up when they, in other aspects. If it's somebody that you are in a relationship with, that you have kids with, they'll try and pull in someone from your family if they can, So say like you're a mum and you've split up with your partner, and he's the horrible one, and you have to still have contact with him. They'll do their best to like befriend your mum or your dad, or I don't know, your auntie, uncle, whatever they can, to get them on board so that they can really triangulate with you. I wanted to then just talk about something that is even perhaps harder to talk about. And we see this playing out a lot. And I've called it weaponized vulnerability. I think it's growing with social media. And that is where people like use their own wounds. And I've just talked about how they sometimes do that with DAVO, yeah. But they'll use their own wounds as a way of like, you can't do that to me. Like, you know, we see this all the time. You see this with enablism, right? When people are fucking enablist and they're always like, have you thought about their trauma? People do that all the time. You have no idea. Like, you have no idea what it was like for me. And you get this, you know, so I get parents that have disconnected with, whose children have cut them off, message me. And the big long messages that they send me, that one, they're trying to get me on board, right? Because I just think if they can win me over, and it's like, yeah, look, even Josh thinks you shouldn't have cut me off, which is another reason why I would never give an opinion on whether you should or shouldn't, you know, in any circumstance. But they'll send like, you know, a big long message to me, and they'll nearly always say, I was horribly abused when I was younger. And it makes me sound lacking in compassion when I think that that's not an excuse for what you're doing and how you're being. Because I have the utmost compassion for people that grow up in really difficult childhoods, the impact that can have, how that can make you dysfunctional when you're older, how it can make you do things that hurt people that you care about, how you can get trapped in patterns of doing it. You can find yourself down a road, like, how the fuck did I get here? And I need to get out of this, and I'm going to hurt so many people that I care about and don't deserve to be hurt. I have the utmost compassion for that. And I know that happens. I think it happens to the best of us. I really do think that. And, you know, I really hear people when that happens to them. And when you're talking about these toxic and horrible people that I'm talking about, there's an energy to what they're doing. They're like using that wounding that they probably did experience to like justify it. There's a difference here between me going, you know what? I think that my behavior is born out of the wounding that I experienced because of the trauma that I experienced when I was younger. And I'm really working to try and do that. And I completely understand that I need to take accountability for my actions, that I have caused this pain, and I need to work. Let me work the best that I can, and hope that by doing that, I can mend some of the broken relationships that have happened as a result of that. That's way different to, this is like, this person is not fair. They are not fair to me in what they've done. I was traumatized when I was a kid. I have deep wounded. It was horrible for me. And now they're just cutting me off. What? Just because I did that? I've tried my best. You see the difference here? There's a massive difference. The first one is accountability. We should have compassion for those people and still accept that as a result of that, relationships may be irreparable, right? But there's this different energy. And that's the victimhood that we're talking about. And I get accused of keeping people in victimhood all of the time. And I have to check myself. I'm like, is that what I'm doing? And it's like, nah, I know it's not. So the next thing that I've written down here is like moral superiority. And you see this in the spiritual realm all the time. Like, how can I describe it? Look, I've seen a lot of I think there's been a rise online with online communities, right? And I have to be wary of this myself, right? And I really do check myself, and have probably got pulled into it as well. I'm going to try and talk about that actually, if I can. But people get like this guru complex, and then as a result of their guru complex, right, and what they're chasing, they create these sort of communities, and then they become cult-like. And what happens is the hallmarks of this is when people bring you together and go, I've come up with this way of saving your life, and here's how you do it. And if you don't want to follow and conform, then you're obviously fucking not trying hard enough. There's obviously something wrong with you. You're not welcome here. Go to another space where they'll take somebody like you, right? That's when it's become cult-like. Now, lots of us come up with ways. I've got my Inner You program. The important thing is to sort of stress, like, there's no right or wrong here, right? This is something that I have found that's really, really helped me. And I believe that with an open mind, there's a chance that it could help you. And I'm very aware that if it doesn't work for you, go and try something else. I do the same with my breathwork, right? This is the style of breathwork that I absolutely love, but go out and try them all. And if this one doesn't work for you, it doesn't mean you don't like breathwork. It doesn't mean that you're a failure at breathwork. It doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. It just means there could be a whole bunch of reasons I could not be a good fit for you in my style. That doesn't mean you're not trying hard enough. And so that sort of guru complex then becomes quite cult-like, because you get this kind of spiritual, righteous, it worked for me, so it should work for you. And if it doesn't work for you, you're obviously not doing it right. You're not trying hard enough. You're not letting go enough. You're not in that conscious space, consciously aware enough to do that. I'll give you a prime example. If you go and look on my Instagram, there's a video of a chap, I forget his name, but it's all public. I'm not outing anybody here. And he's like saying, if you find out that somebody that you're going to get into a relationship with, any kind of relationship, friendship, or whatever it is, if you find out that they are, they say they're not speaking to their parents, they don't have a relationship with their parents, he says, run a mile. He goes on to say that they are the life source, and unless you forgive them no matter what they've done, unless you can love them no matter what they've done, you're cutting off your life source, right? Now, let's be clear about this. We can all have different opinions about this stuff. That's an opinion that you might hold, right? I hold my opinion. My opinion's strong. It's not for everybody when it comes to, like, I think that there are times when no contact is the only option, right? So you can have your opinion, right? I think it's important that we do have our opinions. But what was interesting is that when somebody commented on his thing, it's not that you have to back down in your opinion, because I don't back down in my opinion. I will continue to say, well, here's what I believe. I will argue back, right, and say, here's what I think. Here, let me kick back at what you've said. So my opinions on forgiveness is that you don't have to forgive, yeah. And so when if people kick back against that, I can say, well, here's why I think that, and I'll say, I think what you're saying is forgiveness isn't forgiveness. Or I think that it's a problem when you just say you have to keep forgiving because I think that it can be dangerous, and here's why I think it can be dangerous, right? We can all have opposing opinions and stand true in them. And when somebody disagrees with your opinion, you can stand true in it, right? You should search yourself, and if you still stand true in it, then you should stand true in it, right? But what's interesting is somebody had commented on his post and said, what about my son and his dad? His dad physically abused me in front of him for the first X amount of years of his life until I was able to escape that abusive relationship, right? The comment there should be like, you're talking about some serious abuse here. There's actually no way that I could kick back against your opinion or make my opinion fit. There's clearly like a safety thing here that I can't be aware of. And that's how you go back to that when somebody's talking about abuse, right? Or you don't go back to it at all, right? If that's what you want to do. He went back and was like, here's a couple of books to read, right? So when he says here's a couple of books to read, what he's saying is, I'm not going back against your opinion. I'm just letting you know that you're not knowledgeable enough yet. So you need to read these two books, right? That's a clear tactic, right? And then he went on to say, I can't fully go into it in a comment, but it really requires a deeper sense of consciousness to be able to understand what we're talking about. That is bullshit, right? Because that is sitting from a spiritual high top and going, you're just not consciously aware enough. You're just not deep enough to understand my opinion. And so whenever somebody gets in that kind of righteous spiritual way, they're on shaky ground. And they're into this place which is what, you know, I would call it toxic. It's moral spirituality. And you see so much of it. You see so much of it. And I get a lot of it leveled at me, you know, people telling me that even the way I talk, because I swear and shit like that. So yeah, like, I'm not saying that all of these places that I'm talking about are cults, right? I'm saying it can become cult-like, and people can get cult leader vibes when they don't want to accept that there's another way, and that it might not be nothing to do with how hard somebody's trying or their spiritual awareness. It might just be that your fucking thing that you've got isn't for them. And you should be able to challenge and ask questions and pull things apart. And if you can't in the space that you're in, it's becoming more like a cult than a community. And there's lots of hallmarks on that. And there's somebody that I can think of in my mind that I want to get in to talk about that. I'm aware of time and I haven't got loads of it. So one of the other tactics that does kind of happen when things become cult-like is where you sort of, there's like this group control where you reward people for conforming. So the leader of the group rewards people for conforming to their narrative and what they believe, and then pushes away and ostracizes people that don't conform to their narrative. Yeah. And so that's like, you know, group coercive control within a community. And listen, I said I'm going to talk about it, so I want to make sure that I'm balanced and that I reflect myself as well, you know. It's hard, right? When you start a community, and I've always tried, I come from 12-step fellowships, which are very peer-to-peer led. The 12 steps have 12 traditions that are really important for the integrity of the group, right? And they're there for a reason. And so it's like nobody should ever lead the group. And I try as hard as I can to make sure that I'm not like that. You need a certain amount of, within a space in order to keep it safe. There often needs to be like an organizer and a leader, somebody that helps sort of contain it in that way. But you have to be really careful that doesn't spill into just running away with your own fucking self-importance. Do you know what I mean? And it's not, you have to work on that to do that. That's the truth. I've been through it all in terms of like the platform that I've grown in the last number of years. I've chased money at times, and I've had to go to myself, fucking hell. I'm making decisions based on money, and that ain't who I am. That's fucking not who I am. But it's not easy. You have to check yourself. And then you can get a guru complex. It's hard, man. When people put you on a pedestal and then you have a growing body of people putting you on that pedestal, it's hard not to sit on it. And you have to fucking knock yourself off it as much as you can, because otherwise you do sit on it. And then you do like think, you start to believe in your own self-importance as a result of that. You have to really challenge yourself not to do that. And I think a lot of people don't. They end up running away with it. I think it can happen to good people. I think good people can get lost in that. And I think there's fucking lots of horrible people that go in and do this because it's the space to go and do it if you're going to do it. So I'm trying to be balanced there to show that. And the reason I can be balanced is because I really do believe that if you come into it, I have an online community. If you come into it, I believe that I do well with that. I believe that in my breathing space in my breathing communities that I do that, I want to lift everybody up when I do these things. And, I have to be careful then. If I pull that apart, am I then like just putting myself on a pedestal because like I'm doing it the right way and I'm not fucking doing the guru complex? And I don't think I am, because I'm sort of highlighting that that can happen. So yeah, I think I'm there, to be honest with you. How long have we been going for? Yeah, okay, a good amount of time. I wanted to make this one short. So yeah, look, maybe I had a little bit of fun with the first interaction on Facebook and stuff like that. And actually, it just turned out when I was reading them that she was... I should have read them before I come on the podcast again. It just turned out in the end that the main thing that was going on is she was just being horrible, which sort of didn't expose too many tactics in the way that I maybe wanted to. And I'll finish by saying that, I'll go back to it. Where possible, don't interact with them. Minimize your interaction as much as you can. When we say grey rocking, that's what we mean, right? You just only have the interactions on the stuff that you absolutely are necessary. Everything else, you avoid it and you don't have them. Yeah, I hope this has been helpful. I don't know how much I've rambled. I've had a really busy week. I was at Formula One Red Bull all day yesterday, working with them and delivering a breathwork session. And so I've been on cloud 9 a little bit. And then it was just like, it's bank holiday Monday in the UK on Monday, which means nobody works and I'll be off with the kids and stuff like that. And the podcast comes out Tuesday and I was like, shit, I haven't got a guest. I need to do a podcast. What can I do it on? So this is what you've got. It's better than nothing, innit? And I enjoy it. And maybe that's what matters most. All right, I'm going to leave it there because I'm fucking rambling now. But as always, I've been Josh Connolly, and this was definitely dysfunctional. I did tell you it would be dysfunctional, so thank you for sticking around till the end here. And if you have enjoyed this podcast, then please help me to grow Dysfunctional by sharing with your friends on social media. You can find me at Josh_FFW. And then wherever you're listening to this or watching this, please make sure that you've liked and subscribed, left us a 5-star review and a comment if your platform allows it. And I'll see you on the next one.